to another AG Chat with Em. I'm your host, Emily Whitten, and we're doing things a little differently this week because we've got a super special guest. But as always, I would like to remind you that I, along with doing all of these, reviews and interviews, I do also have my own graphic novel series. And so if you would like to check out the Underfoot graphic novels, book 1 came out in 2019, and book 2, Into the Sun, is coming out April 20th this year. Please give those a look-see if you're into post-apocalyptic fiction that takes place in Washington, D.C., where all humans have disappeared and the animals have taken over. We've got fluffy hamsters, we've got adventures, we've got friendships, we've got dark mysteries, we've got science and history of the real world worked into a middle grade and up graphic novel series. So please check that out if you're into comics. And I'm not going to do any recommendations this time, except to recommend that after you watch this, you follow our excellent, excellent guest, Yetide Badaki. Hi, Yetide!
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, I'm good, and I'm delighted, as always, to see you. You're one of my favorite people, as you well know. And
well, yeah,
I'm really... Oh, well, thank you. I just feel really blessed that we can talk about American Gods, one of your great achievements to date. I'm sure there will be many, many more. So first, I'd like to talk to you about basically a retrospective of your character and the show. So we're going to talk about some things along that vein before we move on to other topics. Obviously, we're all very sad that we have not got a season 4 coming up for American Gods, but the first 3 seasons have had so much, going on and so much with the character. I want to rewind back to the very first season and look at how you formed the character based on both the book and your own understandings and conversations with the creators. Can you talk with us a little bit about that?
Okay, yeah, but first I should clarify that there's a lot of discussions going on. So it's not, I think I can share that this is not a final thing. Maybe this is an exclusive.
I want exclusives. Go for it.
Yeah, so, it's very, very likely that the journey continues just in a different space. So I feel like I should clarify that. Well, I think I can say that since Neil has to that a little bit. By Neil, of course, I mean the incredible Neil Gaiman, who we are lucky to thank for this whole American Gods story. So to get back to your question about forging the character, going back to first season, and going off of what I had at that point, which was, yes, the incredible book written by Neil Gaiman, but we know that Bilquis showed up for, what was it, 2 scenes in the book? So there was actually quite a gift in that there was a lot of wide open space. There were a lot of blank pages to fill. So as much as that could be terrifying in some spaces, it was also actually a huge gift. And so for me, one of the first things to do was, yes, go back to the source material of the book, look at, like rip those scenes apart, like take them piece by piece, like, oh, what does that say about her? What does this mean about her? Let's go by the things that are not said, And then also, because at that time, of course, you know that she was very much referred to as Queen Sheba. And so there was a lot of research there to that character. And so what happened is I started to stitch together what I saw in the book, what I was learning about Sheba, what I was learning about all kinds of fertility goddesses and goddesses from Africa and love goddesses, and also what, more modern type goddesses. Like there were bits of Grace Jones in there. There were bits of Elizabeth Taylor, Beyonce. It's just anyone that any of these goddesses that we looked at, and we see something in and make us feel something. I wanted to grab a little bit from all of them. So that's a lot of what the research entails. If that answers your question.
That's a great start. And by the way, I just, this is one of those exciting things about recording. You're going in and out a little bit. I don't know if your mic is close to you, but if you can step in or lean into wherever you're recording just a little bit, that'd be great.
So I'll lean in a little bit here. Like this is where my mic is. So hopefully
you definitely sound clear now. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, much better. So we'll hope that continues. I'm so glad to have your time, however we can have it, but we want everyone to be able to hear you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So yeah, let me know that stuff.
Of course, of course. So you were talking about how you found a number of influences from both the book and from other characters. And of course, then you had to, once you figured out how this character was going to be portrayed, you have to get into the character. Now, I love the wardrobes, the set pieces, all of the different things that Bilquis has had, from the fanciest to down when she was kind of a homeless, down to her least bit kind of person or goddess at the time. Can you talk about the process of getting into character, both inside your head and through those externals?
Oh, well, that is a great question. So for the process of getting into character, I mean, all of the elements that you just described are a huge part of that, because there's something about being able to have that reinforcement and feedback when you look in the mirror and you start to see the character in there. And that's, all thanks to people like Suturat Larlab. She did costumes first season. I think she's off doing like Bond movies and stuff now. And there was a lot of thought that she put into the colors that Bilquis would wear, things that would come from her history and things that would have stayed with her over the years, things like purples and all of that, where royal colors that would have been more difficult for her to get into, or would have been more difficult for people to get in the past, and which still live with her. As for hair, we had Corolla first season. I mean, we had lots of wonderful individuals along the way. And there was, a lot of discussion again about the ways that related to these different characters, these different ideas of the goddess over time. You can see that there's been quite a journey and shift that has occurred. So that this third season, we were very specific with Charlene Shillingsford and Ethline Joseph for things we wanted to do with hair and texture, and telling the story within that, with her finding her, the African roots of it all. And this season for costume was Robert Blackman. And we saw that journey occur, where there was the most, at the earlier part of the season, we saw the more quote unquote exotic view, and we saw how that shifted and changed as she found herself and moved forward, but still taking in moments from her past that showed in like the colors. That coat that I say I wish I had from season 3.
Yeah.
Like peacocky color, but that was exactly it. There's reference back to peacock feathers, to peacocks, which, as we know, relates to Oshun, and there's so many beautiful layers that when people go back and rewatch, you can see that there was a lot of thought put into it. There's a lot of thematic elements that continue through the thread, and that was all thanks to our incredible team. So once I find myself, and of course I have to say, Colin Penman for makeup. Emmy award-winning Colin Penman. I know he's gonna be mad at me for bringing it up again, but he is Emmy award-winning. And that man knows my face, I think, better than anybody. Because he's been there from the get-go. And what he does, again, because whenever he's successful at what he's doing, it doesn't pull focus, but there's so much thought that he puts into every little thing that's on my face, down to the fact that most people may not have realized, but all 3 seasons, I never wore lipstick, ever. It was always either some lip gloss or it was something called Egyptian magic, which we also sometimes use on the body, but I never once wore lipstick. And
Huh.
yeah, yeah. And you're thinking about it now.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously wasn't needed because, but that's a really, it's a great and interesting makeup choice. And I don't want to spend inordinate amounts of time on, the questions that a lot of women get about, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? But I do want to talk for a moment about, have you had difficult experiences with makeup artists in a challenge of lighting your face because of people maybe not having as much experience with darker skin colors? Have you encountered that, or has that improved greatly? Because I have heard stories about such challenges.
Oh yeah, it definitely happens, and I was very lucky with people like Colin, and the how much I learned about my hair from Etheline and Charlene. They taught me so much that I didn't know. That there are often many things that I would do hair wise just to make sure if I end up on a set that I have a certain amount of control over it, because I have situations where I'm going, oof, you're putting water-based something, and that's not gonna, and also a lot with over powdering, my face and things like that. Which for me, what happens is then my features are just washed out. I just become flat, and you don't find any. Like right now, I'm not wearing any makeup. I'm just wearing mascara, and so, like Colin completely understood my face. Like he knew how to. And then, of course, now we get to cinematography as well. Everyone lighting it. Like Mark, he's just incredible with cinematography and all of that. And so,
we might be losing you again.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you. Yeah.
Okay, you get me now?
Yeah, some of it might be the internet connection. I can hear you better now. Yes, I'm so sorry.
Don't apologize. Okay. I mean, that's on me too. Yeah, just let me know at any point. But yeah, those things definitely do happen. And it is very stressful when you go on a job and you want to focus on performing, and you want to focus on, the work that is being done, but you're more at a disadvantage if you also have to try and pretty much do your own glam, and figure out how to be in your light in a way that doesn't that furthers the story. Like, those are not things that you should have to worry about as a performer.
Right.
And
having to educate someone else while you're doing your job. Yeah, I can imagine.
It's not a place that you want to be in. And so it's wonderful to see that that is changing now, that more and more people are cognizant of it. And they also say if they're not able to do it, that they find someone that can, and just understanding that it's an issue now. That's a huge step, where before someone might come in and seem like a diva if they're like, well, I need someone who who knows my skin, or I need someone who can work with my hair. When you have a set really looking into that for you, it's a huge weight off, and you then are back on an even playing field with all the other performers there, because you're not spending how much brain power trying to figure out all that other stuff, as well as the work that you're supposed to be doing. So it's shifting, it's changing. It's still not probably all the way there yet, but it is something that people have started to be aware of. And like I said, I've been lucky with like Colin. Colin knows my face. I remember I brought in a picture of me as a child, like in a bunch of people, and other people were looking at it going, oh, which one's you? And as soon as Colin got the photo, he's like, that's your face. Like,
you knew your structure down to the bone, right?
Down to the bone. And he's like, how does no one else see it? I'm like, Colin, you know my face.
Yeah. No, it's great to know that there has been improvements in that. And so moving on from building the character to the journey the character has gone on from beyond the book, can you look at a little bit how Bilquis has developed from seasons 1 to 3, and especially in season 3, what we see her going through, and what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, what has been incredible is that we have seen quite an arc for Bilquis, from what we saw her in first season, and even in the way that she accepted worship, in the way that she had a sense of self and a sense of how she was being perceived as occurring in the world. We see a huge shift up into this season where there is full self-actualization. There's more of a belief in love in self. There's self-love. There's not needing it so much from outside sources. There's and in that self-love, there's an empowerment that is fully occurring. What I loved in first season, and what I loved at the beginning of
Oh, we're getting a little choppy again, but I think you said it might be the internet connection. I think you said it was going towards self-love, if I heard that correctly.
Good, yeah, and I'm gonna lean in. So if my face is all huge in there, apologies all, but I'm
Your
leaning
face
into
is great.
Just leading in, hopefully that'll help. But what I love about Bilquis is that with every season, there's been further knowledge, further growth, and I feel something that furthered a lot of conversations that I think are absolutely necessary. So, in the first season, there was a lot of conversation around intimacy, around expression in the body, around nudity, and these were all things that I felt absolutely needed to be talked about, because it was, there was a lot of shame put on these ideas, and it's still to some extent put on these ideas, but so much so that people wouldn't even talk about them. And it's very interesting to look back at that journey, because like, for example, nudity for me was something that was not very, that didn't come absolutely natural and easy. But I was very curious about what that was about and why. And looking back, what was happening with the character and everything, this was at the very top of, what we saw in the more mainstream and social media Me Too movement, and people really, really talking about sexuality and consent and all of these things, that if we were constricted by just the idea of shame, we'd never get into those conversations, and then things fall through the cracks, and things then occur that, if they had been discussed and put out in the light, would never have had a chance to occur. So I loved that I got to be a part of that conversation from that introduction there. And then, we started to see, so I would say first season, we see Bilquis just trying to survive. Second season, she starts to thrive. So we start to see this build of a belief in self, like it was starting to happen in the second season, a belief in not having to follow the constraints or norms of the world that was put forth, and in finding another way. And so what that led to was in season 3, I feel like Bilquis really finds her drive and a sense of purpose, and what she is capable of of ushering into the world and helping to occur.
I think that's amazing. And it seems like it's such an important story to be telling, of a journey of coming into yourself and being comfortable with in your own skin. Did the experience of telling the story change or affect you? What has affected you about that?
Oh, so much. Where do I start? I mean, from the very beginning, Bilquis was a source of empowerment, because the character helped me to look at and face a lot of things. Again, speaking about these societal constructs that often use shame as a way to silence and to hide things. And so, for one, there was a lot of freeing that playing the character allowed. And then getting to
I missed that. There was a lot of what? I'm sorry.
a lot of freeing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna come in real close and stay right here.
I don't know if it's the connection of the mic, but I appreciate your patience with it.
No worries. But yeah, there was a lot of freeing that occurred with the character. There was, and then getting to do all this research about all kinds of different goddesses, from ancestral ones to modern ones. You can't help empowered by learning about all these feminine figures that stepped into their own. And by feminine figures, I'm sure everyone knows by now that I'm totally about freeing the binary. That's not about any kind of gender assignment. So there was a huge shift that started to happen for me. There's been so much growth, and I don't know if people realize it's been about 5 years now.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a
Wow.
long time for growth.
We've known each other a while now, haven't we?
It's been a little while.
Yes, that's crazy. Happy friendiversary whenever it started. San Diego, several years now.
Happy friendiversary.
Oh, that's great. That's great. But yeah, it's a long journey that's been ongoing, as you were saying. Please continue.
Right. And so it's made me have to confront parts of myself as well, and also shine a light on parts of myself. And so one of the things that happened is I came out as bisexual. That's not something I don't know that I would have been comfortable doing before all this, and that had a profound effect. Freeing is the word that keeps on coming back. There's a lot of release of maybe the constraints of ideas of what people say, think that I should be. There's no more should be. It's really finding who I am.
Finding who you are is amazing. And if you don't mind my asking, was it that you, and to whatever extent you're comfortable talking about these things, was it that you knew in your heart that you were identifying as bisexual and that's who you were, but you weren't comfortable talking about it until you had gone through this journey? Or was it something you discovered during the journey you were on?
It was about expressing it. I wasn't comfortable about expressing it beforehand. But this journey, that freeing journey that I keep on referring to, made me more and more not only capable, but also made me want to express myself more truly, just from this whole experience.
I think that's wonderful that you were able to grow in that way during this role that you were playing. And to touch on another potentially difficult subject in ways, you mentioned in the first season having the roles, the scenes rather, where there was nudity, and of course that comes up again in different parts of the show. The industry and also just culture can put a lot of shame on bodies, naked bodies, women's bodies, Black women's bodies that are naked, etc. There's all these layers to the difficulties with feeling comfortable with that. Have you experienced downsides or negatives to that expression, and has that affected anything in your life?
It's such a huge issue to unpack, right? People have a lot of strong emotions and reactions to nudity, to more so I think more so the idea of a woman being comfortable with herself. That seems to be gets some people more upset than actual nudity, because you
Mhm.
sit there and go, well, I wasn't nude in that scene by myself, you know.
Right, right.
So why is that the only thing you saw? Um, and I've found that a lot of people want to try. Some people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, and I should make this distinction, because I've also heard from so many people, male and female and beyond the binary and all, who have reached out to say how empowered they were able to feel from seeing that journey. But some people do have issues. Some people do want to try and use shame to control. Um, oh, there's several examples that I can bring up. First, I'll bring up those. I got this random email one day of someone that said they had, you know, that they had hacked into my cameras, and so they had.
I'm sorry, you said there was an email where they hacked into your camera?
Well, that's what the email said. It was the most random thing.
Okay,
They
yeah.
hacked into, according to them in this email, and that they had, footage of me, compromising footage and all of that. Now, here was where there was the gift of Bilquis. I'm going, you do know I play Bilquis on TV, right? I'm not sure what footage you think you have.
Right.
That's already, because they're like, yes, we'll send to friends and family. I'm like, the show, So there was, again, that freeing part where I was like, well, what do you have? I'm actually curious at this point, and so that very much released me in a way that I would not have been able to react to that situation before playing this role. But I think we've discussed this somewhat, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to speak to this. But I'd also found that sometimes when certain roles or things were coming up for me, opportunities, and perhaps some people thought it should go to others, there I would see an increase. All of a sudden, I would start to see videos, like clips of me in the nude and pictures of me in the nude, and it was the strangest thing. The first time I saw that happen, I'm going, oh, well, that's going to happen at this point. But then it's happened several times, and I went, I see what's happening here, and it's twofold. One, trying to, yes, shame me, like, who do you think you are that you can go for this thing? Like, oh, we saw you without clothes, okay. But secondly, also hoping to um, to constrain individuals that would look to work with you, and trying to box them in, again, trying to use shame. So what's wonderful is when, okay, for one, I'm no longer, that no longer has the power over me that it once did. But it's also then seeing different companies, different institutions, um, they're pushing back on an old patriarchal construct, and that they then go beyond that. So we're seeing some growth. We're seeing some, dare I say, evolution. But, especially the first couple of times, I have to say, just honestly, like, my heart would drop. Like, oh, well, there goes that. I guess I'm, not going to get that job. I'm not going to get this. Yeah, it was painful in those times, but it keeps on coming back to this freedom that this character has afforded me, and a strength, and more of a resistance to that kind of shaming tactic.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been very lucky that people then are able to see, they're able to see beyond that, and talk about what is the work, what is the talent, what is, this was a performer performing this thing and doing it with, I've been lucky for people to reach out, say, and doing it with courage. And hopefully it's also shifted some ideas of what that all means.
I really I appreciate you talking about that, because it is something, it's kind of like the hidden, underbelly of what happens when these things are going on. And as you said, an evolution, for instance, if you were to play Storm, in which the evolution would be into a mutant, some people might see that and say, like, oh, I don't know, she did this naked scene over here, but there's really no reason why that should affect what other work you are doing, particularly taken in the context of the story you were telling at the time, where there was reason for everything that went up on the screen, and it had that impact. But I appreciate you speaking about that, definitely.
And you bring that up, it's funny because there does seem to be also a different idea about Black bodies. Because if we're talking about superheroes, Scarlett Johansson has been nude quite a few times, and she gets to live in that world as well. And so when someone comes at me like that, when I'm expressing my love of Storm, I go, wait a minute, do you want to take a minute and think about what's really going on here? Because if that's the issue, we can look at probably a couple of those characters that have, that have also done intimate scenes. So but again, the hopeful part is that I feel like institutions are opening their eyes and they're seeing where the systemic, issues are, and yeah, it's wonderful to see that evolution.
It is great to see some of the systemic issues being addressed. We're continuing to occasionally have some issues, but I'm getting most of what you're saying all the time, so we're doing our best here. Speaking of technology, I want to talk for a minute about the not to move too quickly on. I want to see you be Storm every day of the week and twice on Sundays. We want to see this make it happen. My producers like, make it happen. We're all about this. We're ready for you. And I want to see more X-Men movies. So, hopefully it'll be time again soon. And maybe they could do a whole movie that's focused on Storm, because she's a fascinating character with a long and interesting history. So, and a lot of deep roots, that you can talk about and figure out and see where she came from and how she's, come to be who she is. Not that I'm telling you anything you don't know, as a Storm fan, but
hey, Black Panther. Yes, agreed.
Yes. Oh man. But I do want to talk about one of my favorite things I saw you do in American Gods, which is being Technical Boy's subconscious when he, in season 3, when he's stuck in the kind of insane asylum of his own mind because he's been, boxed with that mechanical thing, and you show up in a sweater he wore in a different scene earlier in, I think, the same season, with the hair. Yes. Oh my gosh. You were pitch perfect as Bruce Langley as Technical Boy. Please tell me about how you prepared for that, what it felt like, please. That was so much fun. I loved it.
That was so much fun. You can tell we had a really good time. Yeah, it's actually, and I think we might have had a picture earlier of that. It's the same pants and sweater that he wore in episode 1 when he came to meet me, and then experienced that thing with the tear down his eye and all of that. That's what he was wearing.
Yeah.
And so they actually had that in costume, put it on, and was like, oh, this works. The hair again, Ethylene and Charlene, they went back to a previous season to get that hairstyle. And I think people were pretty shocked when we stepped on set and I opened my mouth, because they're like, wait, what?
It's so different. It's so different.
Wait, what just happened? Like, but we've spoken about how it's been about 5 years now, right, of this show, and I've known Brucey for 5 years now. I've had a lot of time to observe him, and we've done scenes together, seen each other's work, And so, and then I just got a little bit more intense about it in that, you know, right up going into shooting this. But yeah, you can't spend that much time around someone and not pick up a couple of mannerisms and all of that. And it was just, I mean, it was so much fun, and must have been super surreal for Bruce.
I was going to ask what his reaction was when the scene was done, or when you started, or what did he say anything about it?
He was just like, this is super surreal. Like, what's great for me is that I'm looking right at him. Anything he says, I can hear it right back. You know what I mean? And it's just, but again, we talk about freeing. I think some people were surprised. I don't know that they knew that existed within me, which makes it even more fun. I think it came as a total shock to everybody when it came on. Like, no one saw it coming. No one saw that scene coming.
I mean, I've known you for a while now, and you are one of the kindest, sweetest, nicest, most wonderful people I know. And I was absolutely delighted to see that other side come out in your acting, and like, what is going on here? It was so much fun. But of course, like, Bilquis, is not like that. You as a person, I'm sure you have angles like that, but that's not the primary thing that comes out when people talk to you. So to have it come out in your face, it was so much fun.
It was a good time. We had so much fun that day, and it actually went by pretty quickly too. Our director Tim, he was just brilliant, and he knew in his head how he wanted to piece the bits together. So it was actually a pretty quick day.
I mean, that's great, and it just flowed out of you. I feel like you were waiting for that opportunity.
I had this all like bottled up, but what a great way to just let out some steam,
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. Speaking of working with the other actors, because that is one of the other things I want to ask you about. We've talked about some real heavy stuff. I'm just going to give you whiplash going back and forth. Can you tell me, some fun experiences or set stories, or just crazy adventures y'all have had during the filming of all of this?
Oh, there have been so many adventures along the way. I think one of my first favorite memories was my birthday in the first season, because that was the first time then that we all got together. Like, at that point, I hadn't worked with Emily. Oh, geez, everyone came out, and we were just being goofy and dancing, and, really getting to just know each other beyond beyond the script. Of course, meeting Neil. That was just,
Oh, I lost you for a second there. You said you were still meeting some of them, and then I missed a little bit there.
Oh yeah, everyone for the first time, and then I said meeting Neil. Like,
oh, right.
That was a huge
Is
geek
that
out moment.
Is that when you met him on your birthday celebration?
No, he wasn't at the birthday.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I would have been able to handle it at that point.
I would have paid good money to see Neil dancing with everyone. I would. I'm on record. Neil, I want to see this.
We should totally do that. Be like, hey, Neil, we should. Oh my god,
let's go dancing. I feel like he might be game for a couple of minutes. He might.
I feel like he would be, but it's just it's funny. We have a lot of dancing memories, actually. Like, we as a cast tended to dance a lot. I mean, and well, we have a lot of great dancers on our team. So, like, you just watch Emily and Pablo and Ricky and all of them,
And everybody. Yeah, there's some great stuff in this in the scenes, and just, I'm sure, off the camera.
I would say, other fun things, doing South Africa with Damore and Ricky, and let's see, House on the Rock.
Oh, that place.
That was something else. I have to go back. have to go
You
back.
know what? We should go because I have been there too, and it's so overwhelming that I need to like go back and experience it again. Oh my gosh, we should totally go when we're allowed to.
When we're out. And at that point, it was off season, so we were at the hotel as well that was off season, which, because there was like nobody else there but us, had very much an like an overlook vibe. Um, it was pretty great. It was a fabulous time there, and I
Oh
definitely.
man, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to go back. But pretty much anytime, there's been karaoke moments, like we just oh, karaoke. It always it becomes something else, and everyone's just so wonderful. I mean, you know how much I love Omid Abtahi. Omid Abtahi is like just one of the most pure humans in the world,
He
and
seems lovely. I haven't had the privilege of meeting him, but he seems lovely.
he's just wonderful. On top of being super talented, there's all of that, and then there's Damore with his wisdom, and Damore will also do this thing where he'll like, you're like, wait, Damore, did you just serve me a burn? Did that just happen? Like, because he says it in such a beautiful, like, eloquent way, and you're like, wait, Damore, you just
An eloquent burn, right? That should be one of his skills on his resume. List that on his resume. Eloquent burns.
Yeah, eloquent burn, and you almost feel like, you know what? Thank you. You should give gratitude for it. And Emily is one of the wittiest individuals I've ever met, and quick. It's just everybody. I could go through the list of everyone. And so whether it's we have dinner at some, like, she made us an incredible like bolognese dinner one time. Gorgeous. Anytime we go out dancing, anytime we go out for drinks, it's just like there's always some kind of adventure with that group. You have so many incredible personalities that are so talented. Yeah. I don't even know where to start. Comic-Con for the first time. Like,
yeah.
That was my first time doing Comic-Con. First time meeting you then too.
Yeah, that's right. That was the first season of American Gods. So that was your first Comic-Con, and that was where we met. That's so crazy. At that rooftop party. That was so much fun.
Oh, that was fun. It was just, there've been so many incredible memories. And I kind of feel like I grew up with this show because this was my first series regular, my first, big TV thing. I mean, yes, I'd done guest stars and, co-star roles, but this was a big deal for me. And so I learned a lot about the business. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the work. There were just so many growth moments throughout all of it all.
I love that, and I love that it sounds like, as a group, you're kind of like a family there, a bunch of good friends who actually can have fun together. I think that really adds to what you see on screen.
Right. We're definitely some goofballs. That's.
I mean, if you weren't, you wouldn't be nearly as much fun. So goofiness is good. You're never too old for that.
Hashtag eloquent burn. Oh yeah.
That's our producer saying hashtag eloquent burn. I love it for Damore. Yeah. So I know you've got an out in about 10 minutes, so we're just going to run through a couple more quick things. So I was actually going to ask, is there any chance of something going forward for American Gods? But you covered that earlier. So I will just say crossed fingers for like a miniseries or a movie, or maybe season 4 will come back in the end somewhere else, or stars will change them. Who knows? I'm all for it.
So, just watch this space. I think Neil will probably let people know as soon as he's able to. But like he said, it's definitely not, it's not dead.
Yeah, so. And there's so much more that we could see. So I really hope to see more of that story. In the meantime, I wanted to congratulate you on the Disney project that you announced recently and see what you can tell us about that, if anything.
I can only say what they've shared. which is it's Greek Freak, the movie, and it follows the story of the family at Giannis Adetokounmpo, and Thanis and all of the family. As we know Giannis from the NBA, and it's really an incredible story. Um, what the family has been through is beyond inspirational, it's aspirational. I'm so excited about it. It's getting to work with Daye Okeni and Dayo. It's just, and Aki, who's the director. The script is just beautiful. Uh, I'm, you can tell I'm beyond excited. I can barely speak, but I'm just so excited. It's one of those scripts, like I just started sobbing. I got to the end, I'm just like tears.
Oh.
Like, but good, happy tears, like, yes.
Oh, great. Oh, that's exciting to hear. Yeah.
So I can't wait until, more can be shared about that. But yeah.
Well, I will look forward to knowing more about it and seeing it. We'll talk about it when it comes out or when you can talk more about it. That'll be super fun. And I know that another project you had been working on is your In Hollywood Land film project. And I know that it was available to view at certain film festivals. Is it something that we can see now? And what's the current status of that?
Yeah, it's still doing the festival circuit. And so the best way to check on everything is on the website in Hollywoodland. And we list every single festival that it's coming up in. So yeah, it's wonderful to be able to work on that with Karen David from Fear the Walking Dead and Jessica Sharif, who directed, and to do something that I wrote and to get to produce and perform. And that was a huge step. So I'm really excited every time everyone gets to see it.
That's excellent. I'm so glad that project allowed you to grow in that way, and I'm excited to experience it. I'm ready. So a couple of quick little questions towards the end here, fun little questions. Obviously, we're all still in this strange pandemic world that we are in. Have you had any new adventures or hobbies that have come out of our, different kind of life here?
Adventures and hobbies. I've been doing my keto baking.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I have. So that's definitely been a new hobby that's come up, and also got to do. I'm not quite sure where the release date is for this, but Las Vegas. Zack Snyder's project. So I got to play Queen Miru in that.
Oh, okay.
Army of the Dead, Lost Vegas. So that should be, well, I shouldn't say coming out soon. It's coming out.
We'll see it one of these days.
Getting to work with Zack Snyder. You know what? He's one of us, Emily. Like, he's a geek's geek. And he the stuff, and it's such a pleasure to work with someone like that, and geeking out about movies and different things, and like, he's a fan of stuff as well, and I love working with people like that.
That's good to hear. Yeah.
And I mean, hobbies, I'm really, I guess I'm quite boring, but I'm like, the baking and stuff.
How are your hummingbirds doing? How are the hummingbirds? Are they still keeping you company?
I guess my short bird watching that goes on here. My hummingbirds, I love all these new birds that have shown up now that it's spring, and like, I have to admit, if you walk in on me on my garden, I may or may not be talking to a bird at some point. I'm just saying.
You are a Disney princess. That's what you're doing. You're just like, I'm auditioning for my role as a Disney princess at some point, talking to the animals.
But it's like, they're so lovely. I told you that hummingbird will come right up to me and just like hang out. Yeah. It's just, it's a bit of a joy. So that's the dorky stuff that I'm up to.
I think that's amazing. You are never boring. You are a lovely person. So we're gonna wrap this with one last question, and that is going back from all the fun to another more serious question, because I like to challenge you.
Right.
If you were going to share some advice for aspiring creators, whether they're actors, producers, directors, writers, what do you think you would want to convey from what you've learned during American Gods and your other work?
Oh, that's that's a big one. That's but I keep on coming back to this answer because it has continued to serve me, and it continues to serve um, as we speak. But someone once said to me, "Know your why. Why you want to do something. Why you want to be in this business. Why you want to tell stories. Why
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing. Know your why." um, I guess that all boils down to stepping into purpose. And in that way, moving the needle forward, not just for you, but for as many people as you possibly can. And so knowing your why and knowing my why has always helped through, whether there's people having doubts in my abilities, or whether it's there's a billion no's coming in at me at any given day.
Whether it's, I'm sorry, I missed that part. Whether it's what again?
A billion no's, because in this business you do get a lot of people telling you no.
Yep.
That you didn't get this thing, you won't get that part, you don't, but and even through, I've been through some majorly difficult times. I kind of gloss over it. This has not been any kind of short journey. This is something that takes a lot of time. But having that why has been the through line, has been the anchor, has been the thing that pulls me through everything, through hard times and through the good times. It also keeps me grounded when things are, going seem like, oh, everything's amazing. So that's one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got. And that's one thing that I always want to try and impart to anybody else. It's knowing your why and having, real purpose behind your why is a powerful thing.
That is excellent advice. That definitely jives with how I look at my own creating aspects. So, we're always on the same page, you and me. I get that. I love it though, and that is very important. And you are a very grounded person, and I'm sure that is one of the ways that helps, to ground you. So I super appreciate that. And I really appreciate your time. We are going to have to go, which makes me really sad. Not that we'll never see each other again. But I would like to remind everyone to follow Yetide Badaki at the handle that is there on the screen. You can also follow me at the Emily ESSE. You can follow Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can like and subscribe to our videos. And although we won't be necessarily talking to you today again in the next couple of episodes, I will be coming back to do more of a retrospective on American Gods through season 3. So please hang out with us next time. And Yetide, thank you. I miss you. I love you. This was amazing. And thank you so much for your time.
Always, thank you. And also thanks, Brandon. I see what you got there.
That's right.